Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So, I'm Rajender. People will be kind of trickling down, joining in people will keep joining in the first 5 minutes of this. So let's start actually. We are very pleased to welcome you to this third webinar in our four-part series. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that most of our participants and panelists in today's sessions are joining from across Canada, from many different Indigenous territories. We recognize that the lands on which we live, work, and learn are the traditional territories of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I would encourage everyone to take a moment to reflect about the territory that you are joining from today. Thank you, everyone, for that moment of reflection. Now, a brief introduction about us. So, the DAEUS is a public policy and leadership think tank at Toronto Metropolitan University. We work at the intersection of technology, education, and democracy. Our work involves like policy, research, leadership development, and convenings, and sort of like learning opportunities such as today. So one of our key projects in K-12 sector is called Heads Up, which is focused on advancing the case for better and more consistent phone-free policies across Canada. And just like today morning, but also yesterday's news from Ontario's education minister considering towards moving towards bell to bell even in higher grades is a music to our ears, if I can say it that way. So within this particular project, we have this webinar series, the Lunchroom, making phone-free schools work, where we are bringing together school leaders from across the country to share basically how they are enacting these policies, what's working, what is the challenges, and what are the things that they are learning along. The goal of this conversation is to kind of like to to get our audience hear from the school leaders who are actually implementing these policies every day in their schools. And also, the webinar will be recorded and then later on shared on our website and YouTube channel, so that kind of like folks who cannot join now because it's a school day, they can hear it later also at their own convenience. And we are very happy to be partnering with EdCan and the Phone Free School Movement Canada for this particular webinar series. So I'll actually invite my colleagues to introduce their organizations. So first, let's go with Kathleen.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on where you're joining from across this country. My name is Kathleen Lane. I am the Executive Director of the EdCan Network. Thank you, Rajendra, for having us here and for partnering with us on this important work. The EdCan Network is a national bilingual not-for-profit organization that empowers education professionals with evidence, expertise, and a collaborative network to enhance learning and well-being in school communities and school systems across our country. Through our publications, including the Education Canada magazine, our virtual events, and our working groups, we connect research and practice, and we share what's working across jurisdictions. As everyone here knows, getting off our phones and our digital devices and into relationship with each other is an important strategy for enhancing both learning and well-being and fostering a sense of belonging and connection in our schools. We are delighted to be partnering with the DAEUS to share how schools and school districts across the country are effectively implementing policies to restrict cell phone usage in schools and classrooms and allowing our students and our staff to have these vital opportunities to connect. So thank you so much, Rajendra, for the work you and the DAEUS are leading.
Thank you. Thanks, Kathleen, for your ongoing support and partnership. Now, NG from Phone Free School Movement Canada.
Thanks, Rajendra. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. So thanks so much for having me here. I'm Angie. I'm the Executive Director of Phone Free Schools Movement Canada, and I'm really happy to be here as well and partnering with the DAEUS for this important discussion. I'd like to just give everyone a little snapshot of my background. I've been working in education since I started teaching in 1998, both in elementary and secondary schools across Quebec and Ontario. I also spent some time at the university level as an academic advisor. And over these years, I've had a front row seat to how technology has increasingly shaped and disrupted students' learning, well-being, and relationships. And as a parent of 3 young adults, I've also experienced these challenges at home as well. So that's what led me to bring this Phone Free Schools movement to Canada. I'm partnering with our team in the States, Phone Free Schools Movement and Fair Play, as well to support us through this. And creating phone-free environments from the first bell to the last is really, across all grade levels, is really one of the most effective low-cost guardrails that we can put in place to protect students' attention and well-being, and give them the space for real connection that's free from the pressures and distractions of the online world. So ultimately, this change really needs to be system-wide and supported by strong policy at the provincial level. So through our Phone Free Schools Movement Ambassador Program, we're building a growing network of parents, educators, school leaders across the country who are working toward a shared goal of restoring the conditions students need to learn, connect, and thrive. I'm really excited to see Andrew and Matt here today as part of this network. And I also recently connected with Tim through our provincial outreach, and so excited to hear them share their perspectives and their wisdom on this. We're hearing from administrators in Quebec, like Matt, who are telling us that the policy is really helpful, but that even still schools need practical tools, resources, community buy-in to be able to implement it effectively and make sure that it's sustainable. And so that's where we come in to provide consultation and support at the school level. We have an administrator toolkit that gives school leaders a blueprint to help them shift towards full-day phone-free culture in their schools. And our monthly meetings are helping us connect with people across the country to share ideas and strategies to help schools, but also to help advocates who want to see change at the provincial level through policy. These connections are so important, and these conversations are important as well, because they inspire and give courage to those who know they want to make changes but aren't really sure where to start. So we really want people to know that they're not alone, and we're here to support them along the way. Rajinder, I think you'll be providing our contact info so people know where to find us, but we're really excited to be part of this partnership and this important work.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Angie. And also feel free to drop any resources that you have in the chat right now, like the way Kathleen also dropped. Yeah, and we can circulate later also. Thank you. Thanks, Angie. Thank you, Kathleen. So um, with that being said, for our audience now, quickly, I'll introduce our moderator, and then moderator will introduce the panelists, and we'll go into the conversation. But throughout the conversation, any questions that you have, please keep adding to the chat, to the question and answer session, and then we'll take some questions towards the end, like last 10 minutes or so. So with that being said, can I have Travis now to join us? Yes. So Dr. Travis Saunders, a bit of an introduction. Dr. Travis Saunders is a professor in the Department of Applied Human Sciences at the University of Prince Edward Island, and he's the co-founder of Sedentary Behavior Research Network. His work studies the health impacts of sedentary behavior across the lifespan, and he has authored Canada's 24-hour movement guidelines for children and adults. Um, Travis is also passionate advocate for reduced use of all screens in the classroom settings, and he has been instrumental in getting phone restrictions enacted in PEI, and he's also one of our heads of fellows. So very happy to have you, Travis, and thank you for moderating today's panel. So maybe all speaker can come, and then you can introduce them. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Singh. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's been great working with you and the dais this past year. Um, so if our panelists want to
Yeah.
mute and turn their cameras on, I'll give you each a brief introduction. And I'll give a fairly brief introduction because then I'll get you to talk a bit more about yourself after I introduce everybody. So, Tim Mushamansky is the principal of Trafalgar Middle School in Nelson, BC. It's a dual track French immersion English school with grades 6 to 9. So, welcome, Tim.
Thanks for having me today.
Uh, uh, Matt Shapiro is a vice principal at Westmount High School in Montreal. He's committed to fostering a focused, respectful, and student-centered learning environment and brings 10 years of teaching experience in local alternative schools and has served as an administrator for the past 8 years at WHS. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, everyone.
And Andrew Cantarutti is a teacher and writer who's worked for more than a decade in public and private schools across Canada and abroad. His newsletter, The Walled Garden Education, which some people might have seen, draws on cognitive science, philosophy, and media theory to explore the intersection of K-12 education and the attention economy. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks, Travis.
And so just to start out, why don't each of you just talk a little bit about, the grades you serve, the number of students, the types of environments you teach in, and anything particular, about your school community that you think we should know. So why don't we start with you, Tim?
Great, thanks. Yeah, as you said there, Travis, I'm the principal of Trafalgar Middle School in Nelson, BC. We are in the mountains on a lake halfway between Calgary and Vancouver. We are an artsy, touristy kind of town of about 10 or 11,000 people. And so grades 6 to 9 in our school, 550. And I've been an administrator for 18 years, in the business for 31 years. So I've seen a fair amount in my time as phones have developed and creeped into our systems. And so that's my background.
Thank you very much. Matt?
Hi. My name's Matt Shapiro. I've been the vice principal at Westmount High School for the past 8 years. Westmount High is it's a high school, so grade 7 to 11 in Montreal, Quebec. It's an inner city school. Westmount, if you know it, is a pretty affluent neighborhood, but it's a bit of a misnomer. Westmount Public High School. So it's a public school. We serve we're pretty close to downtown. We're sort of on the border of downtown. We serve many different neighborhoods, different socioeconomic backgrounds. I've been on the front line of our cell phone policy here at the school since I started really 8 years ago. And 4 years ago, we brought in Yonder pouches school-wide for our bell-to-bell phone policy. And with mixed results, but it's been overall really positive. And of course, the Quebec government passed a law banning cell phones in schools altogether last year, at the beginning of this year, and so it's been sort of escalating from there. And yeah, so we have a lot of experience at Westmount. We have about 850-ish students at the school, and yeah, like I said, 7 to 11.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. And Andrew, where are you teaching most of
I'm
the time?
I work in high schools in Kingston, Ontario. Although before coming to Ontario, I worked in BC in the Vancouver area for a while, and before that, I taught at an international school in South Korea. The issue of phones and technologies in schools has colored my entire career. So I'm kind of interested to hear all of our different perspectives about the way this is impacting our communities.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask some different questions, but please feel free to jump in if, Tim says something interesting or that resonates with one of you, please jump in and vice versa. So the first question is kind of more for Tim and Matt. At your schools, could you outline your phone policies? And my understanding is that both of your policies kind of go beyond the provincial policy, or initially went beyond the provincial policy. Could you kind of walk through what it allows, wasn't what it doesn't allow, and where the phones go during the day and how you kind of deal with that? So do you want to go first, Tim?
Sure. So our policy it's a draft policy right now. We're in a bit of a trial period for 2 months where we transitioned from phones away during instructional time in cell phone hotels inside the classroom. And then we've gone to, we just don't want to see them, and that they either need to be locked in a student's locker or in a backpack. We don't want them in a pocket. We don't want them on the person. We want them out of sight, out of mind. And so we started that on March 30th. We're a month into our trial here. And so, yeah, I can talk a bit more about how it's going, whatever, but that's essentially what it is. So our ministry policy was during instructional time, and we have literally gone when you step on the property to when you step off the property.
Okay, so it's full bell to bell, no phone.
Correct.
Awesome. What about it at your school, Matt?
So at Westmount, I mean, there's been a big evolution over the past decade, but and we started with phones and lockers was the first real policy that we put in place to sort of attack the issue. like I said, 4 years ago, we started using Yonder pouches. So we bought Yonder pouches for the entire school. That's every student gets a Yonder pouch at the beginning of the day. And if you don't know what a Yonder pouch is, it's a bag about the size of a cell phone that is sealable magnetically. So there's a little push button. I wish I'd brought one with me, but I don't. And when the students come in, the expectation is that they put their phones in the pouch, lock it before they enter the building, and it's locked throughout the day. Last year we would unlock it. We have magnets at the entrances and exits where students at recess and lunch could unlock their pouch when they were going outside and have access to their phones. This year we interpreted the new law, which meant that there's no phones allowed during the day. We basically interpreted that as, well, we're not going to unlock it at any point during the day because you're not supposed to have access to it at any point during the day. So yeah, like I said, the expectation is that we're not. We have once a month Yonder pouch verification days where students will line up at the entrances, and we have administrators, childcare workers at the doors checking that the pouches are in good working order, that the students are actually putting them in there. But we don't have security. We don't have. I'm not standing at the door making sure students put in their phones into their pouches. Reality is many of our students don't have phones. We certainly don't want to harass them. We want to make sure they can get into the building without us asking where their phone is. But the result of it has been certainly since we started the Yonder pouch is that we don't see phones in the building basically at all. We see, every once in a while, somebody, will have it out in the bathroom or at their locker or things like that. And the staff is very well trained. Those students get sent to the office. Their phone is kept in the office for the day, and then we give it back at the end of the day. And there's a sort of mounting level of consequences for that. But we've definitely seen a lot of positive, a huge uptick just in every single positive marker that you could find. It's happening. There are problems. There are lots of problems with the policy with Yonder pouches too, which I'm happy to get into. But overall, it's been a very positive experience for everybody.
So maybe I'll ask one more question of you two, and then we'll pull Andrew in here. But feel free to if you have any questions or thoughts, Andrew. But I'm just wondering if you could talk about, what's for at both your schools, what's been going well? Like, what are the things that you're noticing that have really gone well with this? Why don't you start this time, Matt?
Uh, it's all the things that you would expect, right? The kids are talking to each other in the halls. They're joining more clubs in the building. This was coming out of COVID, and we had a lot of restrictions on extracurricular activities. So we've been building those back up, and that's been at the same time. So it's been that's part of it. Having access to activities in the building and outside of the building, extracurriculars, it has to happen at the same time.
Mhm.
Otherwise, kids will go stir crazy. They want to get back on their phones. But we have way more students just engaged in conversations in the halls, like I said, clubs. And the teachers report, because I'm not in the class every day, but I see it. The teachers are reporting that they just don't have that distraction nearly as much as they used to. It used to be a huge issue. We would have kids sent to the office basically constantly every single period.
Mhm.
And now it's not. We don't have that issue basically at all. And I mentioned earlier when these things kind of come up, it's not a perfect system. Kids break the rules all the time, but we just don't see it nearly as much as we used to.
And what are the things you're seeing at your school, Tim?
I would echo that. Honestly, it was like a night and day scenario for us. So right before spring break was our kind of last day of our old policy, and the day that we got back after a 2 week spring break was we started it, and it was shockingly good. Like 18 years as an administrator, 31 years in the classrooms and schools. I've never been part of a policy that you could tangibly see, feel in the school, the change in interaction, in kids being kids. Ironically, the number of kids getting pantsed in middle school went up. That kind of thing. They were kids again, right? And so we had to deal with some of those other things of like keep your hands to yourself and whatever. which we were happy to do. Yesterday, the weather was 21 degrees here, sunny. I counted at least 40 pockets of kids outside during recess time, throwing a ball, kicking a ball, playing spike ball, four square, soccer ball, whatever. It was honestly, I've never been part of something like that. And so I'm going to take full credit, even though it's not me, but it's honestly, it's been amazing. So.
That's awesome. And so Andrew, yeah, what does that surprise you? And the schools you've been at, have they had policies, or are these the kind of policies that you would have liked to see at those schools?
Yeah, I mean, these are the kinds of policies that I think I'd like to see, Travis. I think most schools have a policy of some sort right now, but the way in which they're enforced and they're enacted varies greatly. If I have one question for Tim and Matt, it's probably, how long did it take for those transformations to take place? Tim, you said that you're in the middle of like a 2 month immediate. Interesting, right?
Instant.
And Matt, would you say the same?
Yeah, I mean, we had prepped the school the year before, so it was something that we had started in June of 2022. Yeah, June of, or whatever, April, May, June of 2022, and then we started it right away in August, September of 2022. So it was, yeah, it was instantaneous for sure.
Right.
Obviously, for us, the work we did on the back end obviously helped a lot too, just because there's a lot of fear about, oh my God, what are they going to do? How are they going to react? They're going to lose their minds. The parents are going to be freaking out. What are we going to do in class? They used to do cahoots, like what's going to change everything.
Yeah.
So, none of that whatsoever. Kids don't love it. And certainly the kids who are addicted to their phones really don't love it at all. But we see the positive and they experience the positive, and that's kind
Mhm.
of what that's what we're all about, right? We're educational institutions. We want to protect our minds. I love
Yeah.
your
I-
blog, Andrew, the walled garden. It's like that stuck with me. We are trying to create this environment that is walling off the outside, uh, you know, horrific atrocities of the world sometimes, and just give them a safe space to learn.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for saying that, Matt. I mean, the metaphor is really deliberate for me. When I think about the walled garden, the idea there is, again, you don't really have walls in order to exclude the rest of the world, but we need to create the conditions that allow for the growth we want to see in kids against competing forces. And I think we've allowed a lot of those competing forces to creep into our environments. I think we have to wrest back control of our environments to preserve that kind of those ideal developmental conditions for kids.
100%.
Thanks, Tim.
And it's interesting because oftentimes when I talk to educators, what I hear is, well, this is in the world. We can only do so much. And I like that walled garden idea. Well, we can model the ideal here, and we can give them those skills here, even if it's only 6 hours a day. We can still, model the things that they're not getting at home.
Right. And I think that's a really important point, Travis, is, school is meant to be the place where all things equalize, where even if kids don't have the kind of supports that they need in the home environment, they can come to school and ensure that the conditions they need to learn are actually met. And I
Mhm.
think we have to make sure that that's happening.
So Andrew, Matt touched on this a little bit, but like you talked about how, phone-free policies are necessary, but they're not sufficient. And so what are some other things that you think need to happen inside a classroom for these phone-free or screen-free policies to have the maximal impact?
Yeah, so I want to distinguish between the existence of a policy on paper and its actual enforcement, because sometimes I think that's where we get caught up in our schools today. One thing that I heard from Tim and Matt, which I really appreciated, was that the support really comes from the administration down. In my experience, schools where teachers are the primary enforcement mechanism, or where they're asked to police phones in their individual classrooms, it doesn't tend to work very well, because like I said, it's just a constant policing relationship, which is not the relationship that you really want with a student. And it's very hard to endure over the course of a school year. So I find that a lot of teachers reach a level of exhaustion in that dynamic. and sometimes don't have that administrative support in order to ensure that the policy is actually effective.
I want to add to that. We did something, we were very conscious at Westmount to not involve the teachers in any of the, very burdensome aspects of this policy, right? And they help us in enforcing the policy, obviously, but like I said, we purposefully left them outside of the checks at the door, extra supervision. There was none of that. We wanted it to be something that they would also find benefit in, and they want it, but not to add work to anybody's schedule. So it was a little bit more work on the admin for sure. And we had some support from childcare workers, from some of the staff that was a bit more, generally around the building. But when it came to the teachers, we wanted them focusing on teaching. When you get them on board and you get the teachers on side, it helps a lot because they are supporting your policy, through thick and thin, basically.
And on the flip side of that, if I can jump in too, I've been really careful. We've been really careful that this is a we policy, that we as 55 adults in this school, from secretary to custodian to principal to whatever, we believe this strongly. We believe that getting off screens is positive and is a good thing, right? And so, yes, we are the ones ultimately responsible for that. But it wasn't my decision, and that everyone is okay, we'll just do it because the principal wants it. It's because we strongly, strongly believe that this is the right thing to do for kids. It's like getting chips and pop out of schools, right? Like, feeding them lunch, as much as I'd like to. I don't think my doctor would appreciate that, but we all just know that this is a good thing for kids. And so we need to be on the same page. We all have different roles in that. And we get different benefits. Like, teachers are greatly benefiting from this, right? But we also don't want any scenarios where, oh, you know what, those are the good kids, and so they just don't worry about them. No. This is an equity thing. This is for all of us.
And like, that makes a ton of sense to me, because I know, like, teaching is very hard. I'm married to a teacher, and it seems like, especially since COVID, there's so many demands on teachers. So what does the actual enforcement look like in both of your schools? Kind of the nitty gritty of, so, there's yonder pouches at your school, Matt. There's the I can't remember what they're called, but I can picture it in my head at your school, Tim. What's it called
The
again?
cell hotels. Yeah, we actually don't use the cell hotels anymore. It's lockers or backpacks.
Oh, it is lockers, backpacks. Sorry. And
Yeah.
so, like, what happens if students are going outside the policy and using their phone during the school day? Who enforces that? How does that happen at your schools?
You want to go, Tim?
Sure. Yeah, I'll jump in. So actually, this starts with the parents and the kids themselves, right? Like, and letting them know that we're going to do this. It's good for them, and you need to back us up, mom and dad. And students need to understand why we're doing this, not as a punishment, but that it's good for them. And so that I think was an easy win. And then it came to informing the kids that any adult in the building, that when they see you with an earbud in, scrolling on your phone, whatever it is, simply will just say, can you give me your device, please? And honestly, we've had 108 infractions in 30 days, which is not unexpected. And not a single one has said, absolutely not, I'm not giving you my device, which to me is actually kind of shocking. But every adult has the empowerment. I kind of like deputize them as, you know what, if your teacher's asking you, it's like your principal's standing there asking you, so just do it. And it's been fairly slick. They bring us a device. We mark it down. We track where kids are at on our progressive reminder scale. And so it's very much a team effort.
Yeah, for us, it's we have basically, if a student is caught in class or in the hallways, they get sent to the office. They hand in their phone. We have like a cell hotel in the office. They put it in there. We take it. We give them a ticket. They have to come back at the end of the day with their ticket to get their phone back. I think what Tim said about not having kids not refusing to give phones in is that was a bit of that it happens every once in a while, but very, very rarely. I could probably count on one hand the number of times that's happened in the last 2 years. And that was a bit unexpected. We were definitely expecting more of a fight from the kids, a bit more of a struggle there, but they were okay with it. And I think the stats kind of play that out. I know the parents are on board. Forget about the parents. Like 95% of parents don't want their kids to have phones, or at least they want a restriction in school. That's clear. At least in Quebec, that was a survey that was done before these policies were put in place. The students, it's a little bit harder to get it out of them, but you can tell. And when we survey our kids, we ask them, hey, how do you feel about cell phone restrictive policies like Yonder? And we had I think it was about 15% said they strongly disagree with them. We had 15% said they agree with them. And then we had the rest in the middle said, I don't know. And to me, that's a huge win. If you have a lot of these teenagers who are addicted to their phones, saying, I don't know how I feel about it, it means that they probably know it's not good for them. So, when they give in their phones, I get the sense that they're like, okay, I'm gonna just take it and we're gonna, see how it goes the rest of the day without my phone because they know that it's really been causing them stress and anxiety and all these things.
And do you both have like that progressive discipline model, like you talked about, Tim, that is sort of, relatively minor consequences at first that escalates? I know sometimes people say, well, we don't want to have massive discipline for this thing. We want these kids in schools. We want them learning. We just want the phones out of there. So what does that discipline look like if students are using their phones, especially if they're kind of repeatedly doing it?
For us, it's the first offense, it's you hand it in for the day. Second offense, you have to hand it in for 3 days. Third offense is 5 days, and then four offenses in a year, and you have to hand it in every day for the rest of the year. I'm going to tell you right now that doesn't work. The policy doesn't really work that great. We're chasing kids more than we want to. When we catch up to them, they often say they left it at home because they know they're not allowed to have their phone. Well, that's probably not true, but we're also not frisking kids. Or not frisking, but like, searching their lockers, things like that. That's a huge burden on the staff. We take their word for it. A lot of this is honor system. We're trusting our kids to follow the policy. And like I said at the beginning, we expect that their phone is in their Yonder pouch. Travis, you have a connection to our school and your family. I'm sure when they talk about how Yonder's going, they're going to be realistic about it. And it's the vast majority of students don't actually put their phones in their pouch. Uh, but we don't see the phones either. So the thing I would say about, and it's sorry, I know I'm jumping all over, and Tim's going to talk about the consequences too. But the thing that we've noticed, the best thing that Yonder was able to provide for us was a complete reset of the policy and really set the expectation for the school about what we want from the students. Because we did have lockers and bags, and we're still seeing it here and there more than we wanted to. So we had to ramp it up a bit more.
So really, whether or not they're using the Yonder pouch, it's created the expectation that it shouldn't be seen, and so it's still having the intended effect, whether or not it's actually in the pouch is kind of what you're
Correct.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about at your school, Tim?
Yeah, so ours is a little bit different. So first time that we have a youngster on a device or with earbuds in or whatever it is, they turn it in. I keep it till the end of the day, and then they check in and we have a conversation about, why this is happening, whatever. This is good for you. Second time is we contact parents and we say, just to let you know, this is 2 times now for your child. This is what we're doing and this is why. Third time is mom and dad, we have the device and we won't release it back to your child. You need to come and pick it up, please. And then fourth time is that we manage it for 2 weeks in the center here. So drop it off first thing in the morning, pick it up at the end of the day for 2 weeks. We haven't got anybody yet at that 2-week model. But yeah, it's the parent pick it up has been eye-opening for sure. But and I think about really like, what are we doing here? What we're doing is showing kids that it's good to be off your phone, right? And so whether it's in a backpack or a locker or a Yonder pouch or whatever it is, showing that they can manage it on their own. Because when they turn 18, 19 and they're out of school, we won't be there to do that and whatever. So just showing them that, it is actually really good to get off your phone. And we know that some kids just can't do it, right? So to me, it doesn't matter. I just don't see phones out right now. And I just love that.
That's awesome. I got a couple questions for you, Andrew, but Tim and Matt, feel free to hop in here as well. So
Mhm.
from your perspective as a teacher, Andrew, what are some things that you think that schools or boards or principals kind of underestimate with these policies? You know, you mentioned that a lot of these schools have policies, but it might be how it's implemented or followed through on. So, yeah, where do these things fall short in your experience?
I think there's a huge role to play here in educating the community, right? So I think in reaching out to parents, there's a big gap that we need to fill with respect to why it's important that we get these devices out of the school day. So I'm going to cite a little bit of research here, Travis, that might help us. Um, the first is to do with attention. So there's a researcher out of UC Irvine, University of California, Irvine, Gloria Mark, who's been looking at attention spans on screens for more than 20 years now. So she began recording our attention spans on screens in 2004, and the most latest recording that she did was in 2024. So in 2004, our attention spans on screens were about 2.5 minutes in length. And now they're down to 47 seconds. And it's been a consistent decline across the 2 decades. What's interesting to me about that is first, that in 2004, 2.5 minutes, I think any reasonable person might look at that and say, that's actually not a very long time to begin with. And I think that's correct, which suggests that screens were never really a great environment for concentrated thought. And that's before smartphones even became a thing. The second piece is that out of California, again, they did some research which looked at the role that sustained attention plays in high school students' academic performance. And they found that it predicted up to 25% of the difference in standardized test scores. So we have to take attention seriously. I think parents need to understand that these devices and these tools fracture attention by design. They harvest attention for profit. And in order to preserve our students' well-being, but also their potential for success in the future, we need to ensure that their capacity to sustain attention exists. And the first step we can do to ensure that is to make sure that these devices are not in their hands.
And so just building on that, how can we cultivate attention and how does that kind of link back to these policies?
Yeah, so I think in the past, when we're talking about like an analog version of education, um, a lot of the assignments that we might give a high school student, for example, the byproduct of that was that of going through the process of creating that product, like a traditional essay, for example, was that they developed certain cognitive capacities. And now we have more and more technologies that allow the circumvention of some of that effort,
Mhm.
which diminishes that cognitive development. So I think we have to start asking ourselves, even in our lesson design or unit design, is what cognitive capacity should this lesson build? And I think we can talk about sustained attention, we can talk about executive function, we can talk about working memory, all of these different things. And we can talk about how that's done with respect to our pedagogy. But I think we have to start to introduce that intentionally in how we design our lessons if we're going to cultivate it in kids where we live in an environment where that opportunity to develop those things naturally is less than it's ever been in the past.
And this might be a naive question as the non I'm an educator, but in a very different way than the rest of you. What does that look like? Could you give an example of what that looks like in the classroom?
Yeah, so I think, let's take executive function, for example, right? Most schools today use some kind of a learning management system, if that's Google Classroom or Canvas or a whole bunch of other softwares. And effectively, what that does is it removes opportunities from students to develop their own organizational skills, right? So if you're getting pinged with a notification that this assignment is due tomorrow or that you have a test coming up, you're not actually responsible for maintaining your own schedule and organizing your study habits accordingly. And although they may rely on those kinds of technologies in the future as adults, I think it's really important to remember that with kids, we need to ensure that they develop those skills
And so this next question is for all of you, and you've all touched on it maybe a little bit, but so one of the things I've noticed as a parent, and my kids are both in elementary school, and we've noticed this. My wife's a teacher, and we've noticed this in multiple provinces going back to, the 2005, 2006, 2007 of as soon as, we started having screens in the classroom of using, screens to keep students in seats at lunch and snack breaks, to reward students, that sort of thing. So we've been talking about phones, but how do things like Chromebooks and other screens come into this? Because a Chromebook, Pokey is a widely used that's gaming website that was just banned, but now there's a clone that everyone's using, and so we see a lot of these same problems. So how do they fall into these policies? And what are your thoughts on these other types of screens in the classroom beyond just a phone that a student brings in themselves?
Um,
So
yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Sure. I think that they're both general purpose technologies, and I think we have to be careful about general purpose technologies in general. A Chromebook is capable of doing all the same things that a phone is capable of doing, and I think we have to start asking ourselves, can this task or can this assignment or this learning activity be accomplished without the screen? And if it can, is there really a purpose in using it? I think for kids, especially, like if you're talking about a middle school age kid or a high school student, sometimes sitting them down and asking them to use a word processor like Google Docs on a Chromebook, it's almost like sitting them down with a typewriter in the middle of an arcade, right? And that's asking a lot of a young person.
Yeah.
That's something that I wouldn't be able to do. And I think we have to start taking that much more seriously.
Yeah, we have kids who need laptops because of their IEPs, because they have particular challenges that prevent them from using pen and paper. Um, they struggle, and they struggle a lot because of that access to that, and we have to be conscious of that. That's a great analogy about the typewriter and the arcade. I think the way I think about cell phones and laptops, any device that's mobile, really, any device that you can kind of bring around with you, is that it's a distraction. It'll always be a distraction. And we have kids who have laptops that are, given to them by the government of Quebec because of their IEP. And they'll go into the hallway and they'll open up their laptop and they're playing the same games they would if they were on their cell phones. I don't know I don't know if there's any research behind it, but I really strongly believe that screens in general should be contextual, right? They should be, in a room, in a living room, where you go to that place to watch a movie with your kids. You go to your classroom to see the lesson on the smart board. You don't take the screen with you, and having it in your pocket, having it in your backpack, just adds a whole other dimension to the distractibility that those other types of screens don't do.
Yeah, and I think that I think about what you're saying there, Andrew, too, is I think we're talking about taking something that needs co-regulation and then eventually moving into a self-regulation. And co-regulation is done with proximity for a lot of our kids. It doesn't matter what we're doing, but especially with devices. So if I'm in a Google Classroom and we're working on an essay, we're going to type it out and double space it and count the words and whatever, just like we did back in university, hoping that we were close to that 5,000 mark. Every 7 minutes we'd recount. But proximity of I am a classroom teacher, I'm a principal, I'm wandering around, I'm seeing what's on your screen, and I'm commenting about what's on your screen. I am co-regulating right beside you. Hey, that window shouldn't be open, whatever it is. But if you have somebody who's not co-regulating kids, who is not circulating, seeing what's going on, whatever, free reign happens. And we see that, right? And so to me, it's like I'm shoulder to shoulder with you. Because I'm going to show you that this can be possible and that this can be a targeted thing. And then when we don't need that device, you don't have access to it anyways. And we do that as a class. So there are ways to do that. But I would agree. I would say if you can get away without doing an activity, learning activity, whatever it is, without a screen. Why are we not doing that more of that?
And I'll just throw a quick plug. I loved when you said, Andrew, I can't remember exactly what you said, but the benefits outweighing the risks, or is it the best way to learn? And a project that I led for the Sedentary Behavior Research Network was to kind of pull together what's the evidence on screen use in schools, including cell phones, but also Chromebooks and these things. And that was the main takeaway is, as a teacher, you should ask, is this the best way to teach this? And did the benefits outweigh the risks? And if it's not a very clear yes, then we probably shouldn't be using a screen because we know there's harms. Like you say, it's hard for me to not have, TSN going as a tab when I'm working, let alone my 11-year-old. So it's tempting and it's built to be that way.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, yeah, we just have to take seriously that some of the benefits being offered by these technologies are really economic imperatives towards efficiency. And I don't think that that's necessarily what the business of education is, right? Going faster isn't really what we're trying to do with kids. In fact, sometimes slowing down and preserving opportunities to encounter productive friction
Mm,
is what kids need to develop.
absolutely. And-
Um,
oh, yeah, go ahead, man.
Well, I wanted to because I know we're running out of time, and I just wanted to mention something that I wanted to talk about too is that because policy wise, I really think bell to bell is it should be adopted across North America, frankly. I think we should go further. I think we really need to appeal to our families. I think the schools need to be a place where we are educating our families on the dangers of having a cell phone at that age. So even just saying like, hey, put your phone away before you get to school, frankly, I don't think it's enough. I think we need to be telling families, hold off on getting your kid a phone until these particular benchmarks, especially when it comes to brain development. One of the problems I have, I'm very happy with the Quebec government that they decided to pass this law. I think it's one of the few things they did that was good. But the one fatal flaw in that law, and I think other provinces can learn from it, is that there is an exemption in there for educational purposes. So teachers can say, "Hey, bring your phone in because we're going to have a Kahoot during history class or whatever," and that will blow up your policy. It won't work. If there is any exemption in any school where it says that you can use it for educational purposes, suddenly every single kid that's on their phone on their way to class is on their way to a class that is about to use their is asking you to use their phone for that class, which is not the case, and that's what we were dealing with all the time. So we actually had to go a step further than the law and say there is no educational purpose. There cannot be. We will not allow it from the administration point. So that is a bit of a fight. That was something that not all teachers agreed with. But the last thing I'll say is that I mentioned earlier, there are many families and many kids that don't have a cell phone. And what message are we sending to them when, as a school or a class or a teacher, we're telling them, hey, bring in your phone because we're going to be doing this activity. And they're like, I don't have a phone. My parents don't let me have a phone. They're fighting the good fight. Those families are fighting the good fight. And we are actually undermining all the good work that they're doing.
Tim and Andrew, what are your thoughts on bell to bell? I know I'm in a province that brought in a new policy and it was a big step forward, but it's not bell to bell. It's only instructional time. And so what are your thoughts on bell to bell and maybe why it's better than just saying phones away during instructional time, but it's totally fine during, lunch or recess?
Yeah, I think so. My turning point was when I started looking at codes of conduct, right? And so we were very careful. Oh, that's their kind of their personal time. We can't take phones away. It's not during learning time, whatever. But I'm like, I wouldn't let Billy punch Joey in the face, instructional time, lunchtime, as soon as he's on property, whatever, right? So while they're in our care, we have this duty, right, to make sure that we are, looking out for their well-being. And whether that's a social emotional thing, a physical thing, whatever it is, learning thing. And that was my turning point of, what, this actually makes sense. And as a parent, I would be saying to my kids, there are times where you can have it and when times you don't have it. And 6 hours during the day, while you're with me, you don't need it. I have many, many lawyers in grade 9 in my school who want to argue with me and tell me why they should. And I always go back to, tell me why you need access to video games during the day. Tell me why you need access to Snapchat during the day. And they were like, and I'm like, right. So there is no argument here. And so that was my turning point, is that, like, while in our care, and I take that very seriously.
Yeah, I entirely agree with that, Tim. And I also agree with you, Matt, that we have to go beyond as well. In my ideal world, the student doesn't show up to school with the phone to begin with.
And can I just say, we did this with cigarettes. We did this with cigarettes. It wasn't just about uh, when you leave the school grounds, like, light it up, go ahead. We said, guys, you shouldn't be smoking. Like, it's bad for your health. I think cell phones are worse. I think cell phones are worse for your health. Cigarettes are obviously bad for your health. We don't have a cigarette problem at the school anymore because we combated it. When I was a student at Westmount High School, the same school, we had a smoking area called the pit where you could go there at lunch and smoke a cigarette if you had them. You couldn't smoke in the building, but you could smoke there. And obviously that's in the past. And I hope we can get to that point, because I think the research is showing how dangerous to your mental health for children having a cell phone, having access to social media, having it is, and those things that are happening at night at 3 o'clock in the morning, those Snapchats and those group chats that are happening, they don't stay there at 3 o'clock, and they don't stay there at night in the bedroom. They come with you to school the next day, and all of those we're fighting those conflicts constantly, and we still are, because we're not able to manage the phones at home. That's the next frontier. So definitely not in the buildings. Ideally, not at home either.
It's funny, I was talking with a parent advocate yesterday, and we were talking about that same analogy, Matt, of like, you know, it's shocking the things that used to be allowed, whether it's driving without a seatbelt or smoking at school or smoking on airplanes. And we look back and it's bonkers, but at the time it was totally normal. And I really think this is going to be the same thing, that 30 years from now, people will look back and be like it was so obviously a terrible idea, but it takes a while to get there.
Sorry, I'm back on screen. This is so fascinating, and I thought I know most of the things that is in the space, but I'm also learning few things today. So this is now we are entering that question and answer window. We have a couple of questions there, but before we go there, Tim, I remember that when I was talking to you, you mentioned something that before you actually came to bell and phone restrictions, you actually tracked the data, or
Oh
you
yeah,
asked for the
yeah,
report of like how people
yeah.
are using Wi-Fi in your school. Just give us a glimpse of that.
Sure. Yeah. So in our district, we have multiple bands of Wi-Fi in our schools. We have one for school-owned devices, one for staff-owned devices, and then we had a student Wi-Fi channel that every kid knows the password to and could log on. And so when I first came to this school, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of kids online here with their own devices. And we heard the thing, Matt, like, oh, it's educational. We're doing lots of education on there. I said, okay. So we had our techs do an analysis of what was going on. And around 1% of that was to Google, which maybe could be construed as educational. The other 99% was Instagram, Snapchat, online gaming, whatever. There was zero evidence of quote unquote learning going on. And so for me, it was like, why are we providing a service where we know it's not good? We know that there's trouble happening. What's the liability around that piece too, of providing that service to anybody who can just get onto those networks? And so we thought that we would just shut it down and we would see less gaming, less whatever in our school. But devices that can game offline are prolific. And data that is purchased by parents and kids and whatever is also prolific. So at least we could say we don't provide the chips in our school. They might go to the corner store for the chips, but we don't provide it. So that was a fascinating take for us. And that was about 3.5 years ago.
I love that. That's great. I love that you had access to that data. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so thank you for sharing that, Tim. Travis, I can read these questions, or okay. So first question is from Robin. Robin is asking, what's the relationship between the student with an IEP using a device and a student who is addicted to their screen who isn't allowed to have access to a device? Is there a friction? Do they discuss fairness from this perspective that you are allowing this and that person? So anyone can go ahead, actually.
Yeah, I think there is a friction. I've had numerous instances where, kids will be, a student on an IEP will be on their laptop during class as they're permitted to do, and then students behind them are just watching them play video games the whole time, and that either that creates conflict. That's just going to create conflict. So what do you do? Do you have that one student on the IEP turn their desk around or face the wall? It's challenging. It's really challenging, and there is no good way of turning these things off. Students are much better at working around firewalls, hacking the system than we are, and certainly better at hiding it than we are able to track it. So that's a big challenge for us. It's a small cohort of students, but within that small cohort, it's a very challenging thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, we don't actually have any students right now who explicitly say they need to be online because of their IEP. And I would challenge anybody to find a pediatrician or a school psychologist who writes a psych ed plan that says needs to be online. What we have come across is needs noise canceling headphones because of anxiety, stress, a stressful environment, whatever. And that's pretty hard to argue with. The argument comes, does it need to be music in there, or can it just cancel the noise out? Right. And so we've had some interesting conversations with folks and whatever. And we've had some give and take around that. I think, though, as we get deeper into this and we get out of our trial and into like, we're just doing this because we are going to, I think those conversations will be less and less. So really at a school of 550, we have two right now that have access to music, but it is not doom scrolling. It is not, online activity, whatever. And we're very careful to watch that. And I think parents understand that too. Like, I think they'd have a hard time arguing, oh, my child needs to be on Instagram, don't they, for their education? And you say it out loud, you kind of hear yourself and then go, yeah, we're not going to go there.
I think this is also an area in which we can get more creative about how we procure technologies for students with IEPs.
Yep.
There are remarkable new paper-like tablets that are available to kids as well, kind of like a Kindle type of face of screen face.
Yep.
So they're not as stimulating. They're capable of still doing the voice to text that some students with IEPs might require. So yeah, I think we can get more creative in the procurement space as well.
Yeah. So I mean, there is one comment in the chat box. Not sure if everyone is aware, but Manitoba is proposing a full-out ban on social media and AI for children under 16. We heard that news. Ontario also is considering bell to bell, basically. That's in the news, so we see where that goes. And then we have a question from Lisa and also Lana. I'll kind of combine these questions basically. So, from Lisa, can anyone recommend resources that can be shared with parents to get buy-in? Often the parents are the loudest and want constant communication with their student, with their child. And then Lena is saying, related question, for those of us who are parents and on school council, what can we do to advocate for change locally, provincially, or nationally? Also, is it reasonable to hope for a future where internet-enabled devices are removed from schools kind of entirely? So these questions related to parents, I would just anyone can jump in, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we're definitely moving in that direction. I think a ban on social media is coming. It's going to come, I think, within maybe a year or two. It can't come soon enough, frankly. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I think we see the health risks involved in that. I'm sorry, what was the other part of the question? It was a
Like, any recommendations for resources, and also, do you like what can parents do who are on the councils, school councils?
Definitely, I mean, when it comes to our governing board, they review the code of conduct. So, advocating for just a more very strict policy when it comes to cell phone policy, et cetera. Resources, Actually, the other part of the question, which is how do you convince parents who want to be in touch with their students? That is the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
That is the only real part of the conversation that is challenging for us when it comes to the parents is especially for us, we're a downtown school, an inner city school. We have a subway nearby. We have all, the kids take public transit to get to our school often. And parents want to track their kids and they want to be able to call them when they're on their way home. Obviously, that has nothing to do with the in the building policy because if they want to reach their kids at school, they call the front office. We call them down to the office. They use the phone in the office. We have a phone that is specific for students that they can use to call home whenever they like. So I don't buy that they need to be in touch with them at all times. That's just more distraction. That's totally against what the school is trying to do. We're trying to educate, not have some conversations with people outside of the building.
Yeah, and we have a comment from NG that's telling the audience that please tell parents to join Phone Free School Movement Canada meetings monthly to sort of keep the conversations ongoing. So yeah, that's great. And also like one of our partners in this project is Unplugged Canada. So I've shared the link for their website in the chat. They are a parents movement basically advocating for similar issues, but primarily parents take pledge to delay the use of smartphone to giving the smartphone to their child till the age of I think 14 and also they are advocating for social media ban with the federal government basically. So yeah, folks can log in and join to kind of like go to their website, explore resources and all. Just in the interest of time, just this last quick question, or if anyone has any quick comments, but last quick question: is there someone is asking the Lana has asked basically, is it reasonable to hope for a future where internet enabled? I know Andrew, you have said like yes, that's the but any last thought like how basically a longer question for a 30-second, but yeah.
Well, I don't think I would advocate for that. I think having internet-enabled devices in educational environments, particularly for teachers, is very, very important. I think that we can mobilize it in much more responsible ways than we are right now by asking the right questions of how we design our lessons and when it's appropriate to use it, and to inform our decisions based on developmental evidence as opposed to whatever might be trendy. But I think that we can use the internet responsibly. I'm not sure that it's necessary for all children of all ages, but I don't know that I would advocate for its removal entirely.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Any other quick thoughts? And Matt, what do you want to say something?
Yeah, just quickly, just Angie, you mentioned Angie and the Phone Free Schools movement. I've seen the resources they have for administrators, and it's great.
Yeah,
So I think that things like that, things like I know Phone Free Schools has a sort of a way for parents to connect with each other from the same schools or school districts, just to build that community. That's huge.
yeah,
That's a resource that I think all schools should be trying to adopt is creating a community of parents, like-minded parents, to create that critical mass of families that are not sending their kids to school with phones. There's a lot of peer pressure that comes into starting high school and getting a phone because all of my friends
yeah,
have. If there's a
yeah.
community of parents, then you're good.
Yeah, that's the precise intersection where Unplugged, Phone Free School Movement, and organizations are working. So, yeah, just in the interest of time, Travis, any final words? Thank you so much for to everyone. But Travis, no, you're on mute.
Sorry, this is super fun and interesting, and I really enjoyed hearing kind of what's going on, boots on the ground. This is fantastic.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to everyone in the audience also. But thank you for the speakers. This is super interesting today. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
thank you.
See ya.